Welcome back, everybody, to this episode number 4 of the Stick to Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, TJ Oxley, always, and I mean always joined by my friend. Wait a minute. Wait a second, that's not Caleb Sailors. Unfortunately, Caleb couldn't make it tonight. I'm joined by Cam Wicker. Cam's another author at the Rebel Walk joining us. He was live at the press conference today where they introduced new head coach Chris Beard. Cam, you were there. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell what the energy, the feeling was like inside the pavilion.
Yeah, it was a great atmosphere. Like you said, it was open to the public. A lot of Ole Miss fans there. When Keith ended up stopped talking, the Hotty Toddy chant broke out, and Chris Beard said he had chill bumps, and he ended up repeating himself and saying, "Are you ready?" and letting the crowd do it one more time. So he was very emotional. He was very determined on winning, and the crowd loved him. They clapped every time he said something funny, laughed. They were really enjoying the new head coach here.
Yeah, it's something I think, Ole Miss fans were really excited about bringing in someone like Chris Beard, someone with a pedigree like Chris Beard. But it was another thing to come in and actually hear him pretty much walk the talk with it, because what he said, the way he said it, the conviction he had, the honesty that he showed throughout that entire press conference, it made you believe that he had a plan, he had a vision, and he knows what he exactly wants to accomplish with this program. And I think for a lot of fans, that's just the breath of fresh air that they really wanted to see.
Yeah, a lot of coaches here, like Kiffin, Coach Yo, Coach Bianca, they're all involved with community there. All the fans love them and always love interacting with them. And I think Coach Beard realizes that the Ole Miss community is very big on interactions here. And he commented a lot on that, saying he doesn't have time right now with the recruiting process going on and getting in on that immediately with all, the NIL deals and stuff like that. So he said when he gets the time, then he plans on getting out in the community and doing as much as he can to introduce himself to all those people.
Yeah, I thought, one of the kind of more questionable things going into the whole process when they decided, Beard was the guy was, at least in my mind, the thought was, does he want to be at Ole Miss? How long does he want to be at Ole Miss? And I think he certainly put those kind of rumors to bed, because he would pretty much was talking to people. He went out and talked to Coach Kermit Davis. He talked to Andy Kennedy, two guys that he said he had prior relationships with about the job being at Ole Miss, about being in Oxford, and then getting in here, getting to visit, kind of see around the town a little bit. It made him feel a little bit, it made him feel like this was the right spot for him. And I kind of think it is at this point. I think going forward, we're going to see some, really impressive stuff that we, for this program. And I think we've already, to be honest, I think we already have from, day one. But going forward, Ole Miss finally has a coach. It's the 23rd coach in program history. They finally got a guy. He knows what he wants to do, and he was very adamant about winning, and he was very adamant about winning early on.
Yeah, winning early was the big vocal point. He's he's done that a lot at other programs. As a D1 coach, 700 winning percentage, that's pretty big time. He's been in the postseason 5 out of the 7 times as a D1 coach. He's got experience. He knows what he wants, and he even said that it's not arrogance. It's a will to win. It's knowing what you want, and you got to have a vision, and that's what he talked about.
Cam, it wasn't maybe 2 minutes into his speech, he comes out and he says, "I promise you, the success is coming sooner than later. I look forward to seeing everyone back here in 363 days to see who we're going to play in next year's tournament." And he didn't say it like it was, to just get the crowd excited, to, get, just to show like a breath of positivity. He said it like he meant it. And he kept on talking about, the talent, the roster that he needs to bring in, the roster he needs to build, so to speak. And then he's talked about, getting those players and then building relationships. Something that Caleb and I talked a lot about in past episodes, and a lot that we talked about off the air, is the relationships that go into recruiting these players, the portal cycle, and what Chris Beard has been able to do through the portal in the past. He's come in here and he's talked about building relationships with all different kinds of people, and I feel like you can just kind of see it in the way he said it. You kind of felt the energy inside the pavilion when he was talking about it. Things are going to change, and they're going to change really soon.
Yeah, outside of the expectations to win, relationships was another big vocal point during his presser. He talked about just relationships with the community itself, the relationships with students on campus, and just building that community to get the fan base back into the pavilion. The pavilion is one of the best facilities in college basketball, and he talked about that. during his public address, and he wants to pack that out. He wants to have home field advantage every time we go into the pavilion. He wants crowds, he wants recruits around the country to look at us and think, oh, that's a program I want to play for.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and he's looking for that turnaround to come very, very quickly. Uh, it was kind of a breath of fresh air because we knew Kermit Davis, the person, was very nice. He was a very, you liked him as your coach. Now the success in the program wasn't there, but I think with Chris Beard, it's a little bit different. I think this is somebody that you can get behind. You listen to him. He's, first off, Chris Beard, great orator. Went up there and really kind of took control of the room, knowing that all eyes were on him, not just in a local market, but in a national media scale. But on top of that, he went in there and he said everything with such conviction. He, really outlined what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it, and what the kind of thing, what the plan, so to speak, was. He knew he had to do this press conference, but when he kind of went up there and he said, the only place I'd rather be right now is on the cell phone recruiting. I mean, that just kind of spoke volumes for how professional he is and how he really wants to get in and get to work.
Yeah, and he talked about he likes going a mile a minute. He's always going. He said he's going to work to build the program tonight. He's going to work to build the program tomorrow. It's not just building over the years. He wants to win now, like we said. So he's building right now. He's making phone calls. He's doing all these things in order to get ready for the next season, and he's doing that now. He's not waiting, like we said, with the winning and all that. So I mean, 700 win percentage. He's got things going right now.
Yeah, and you got to go to the after the main introduction in front of the fans. You got to go inside that actual press conference that happened with the media. What were things like in there?
As soon as when he got in the room, it was very tense. He didn't have all the bright faces smiling at him and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cameras in the room, and but he handled it very well. Keith Carter got things started, letting them know the process of what everything went on with the media and making a decision, and knowing that everything was thought out thoroughly and not just a split decision. So he handled everything very well. He talked a lot about his family and how he's taken a lot of this time to better himself as a man and better himself as a family man. And he expects to bring a new coach, a new type of person to the court when he comes to Ole Miss.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really interesting because first off, if you watched the event live, and I'm sure if you were there, you also saw it, there were current members of Ole Miss's basketball coaching staff. I say current because they're still there. They're still working at the moment, who may not be there. But it was interesting to hear him talk about the relationship that he had with Kermit Davis, with Andy Kennedy, but specifically going to Kermit, and then talking about the guys that he had on staff and how impressed he kind of was with some of those guys. Now, we don't know what their fate may be, but it was interesting to hear him talk about them and talk really highly about not only the coaches, but the players in the program as well.
Yeah, he talked about Kermit a lot. I think the big thing is talking about the current players, and he said as soon as he got here, willing to be able to recruit those guys to stay. Just being able to talk to the current players here and being able to have a foundation for the next group of guys to come in is big. He's talked about players on the last year eligibility. He don't want them to risk of being in a rebuilding situation their final year with the program. He wants to be able to win now and give those players what they want out of a coach.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see his kind of viewpoints on the actual phrase rebuilding. It was, I think, maybe the fans or the local media have kind of caught onto this narrative that he's going to come in here and he's going to tear things down and completely start anew, where he's actually not. It's more or less kind of the idea that he's going to just kind of retool some things. I mean, I don't know if you noticed that vibe kind of inside the arena or surrounded by some other people, but that's kind of the outside, just hearing the words come out of his mouth. It was more no, you all have some really good pieces. We're just going to get the right pieces to go around that, and then we're going to elevate that way.
Yeah, he talked about this is not a program he plans on building from the ground up. He wants to start now. He wants to win now. And he talked about how this is a university. This is one of the best universities. This is one of the best facilities. And he talked about why not Ole Miss? Why not come here? Why not coach here? And this is a big opportunity for him. Big opportunity for a lot of players that plan on being recruited by him. And it's very exciting to be an Ole Miss Rebel, whether you're a fan, part of the school, part of the community. It's a very exciting time right now.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think the reaction was from the fans who were there?
Like I said, they greeted him with the "Hotty Toddy" chant. They were very loud. The Ole Miss fans are a very unique bunch, and they love deeply when they love their head coaches. And I think Chris Beard will realize that eventually when they do start packing out the pavilion when time comes. It's not one of the biggest stadiums in the SEC, but it can get loud in there. And once we get it packed out, it'll definitely be home court advantage for sure.
Yeah, the pavilion was packed with a lot of different people. A lot of fans obviously showed up, supporters as well. There was as we discussed a little bit, there were some players there. Deshaun Ruffin was there, Matthew Morrell was there, Jamin Brakefield was there, some prior coaches. I think I saw Brock Morris, Wynn Case, Stacey Hollowell, all there. Kind of listening to what the new man is going to say, and kind of getting a feel for who he is. I know they've had a little bit of conversations. But I also saw that, he kind of made it a point to address some of the current players that were there. And, he kind of got like a little, I'm not going to say like full on emotional, but he kind of looked at him and he just, made the comment like, I'm so excited to like, have the opportunity to potentially coach you guys. So I thought it was really interesting that he kind of said it that way. I know he knows he needs to come in here and the job he needs to do is to kind of come in, re-recruit, then go out and recruit other players. But I just thought it was interesting the way he said that. I thought it was interesting the way he looked over at them. Might be something to keep an eye on, Cam.
Yeah, the current players. Yeah, he talked about those guys, got emotional, and I think that's another thing, building relationships. And it seems like he's already starting on building relationships with those guys, as you could tell he when he was talking about them. And big thing, he got 2 recruits to stay with the program, committed to the program. So I mean that's big things too. So already within 48 hours of him being with this program, he's made some pretty big, significant moves for this team, and I think he's got a lot of good stuff in stake, and he'll keep us updated coming in the future. And I think recruiting will be huge, especially with him. He's had 3 top 10 recruiting classes in the past, and they're all recent. So he knows what he's doing out there, and I have faith in him.
Yeah, he's definitely a man that once you get to sit down and talk to him, you can kind of buy into what he's telling you. Another really interesting thing that I kind of caught from the press conference is how when he started to talk about what it means to be a great player. He didn't really kind of go out to say it was all about having great talent, but it was kind of the mindset that went alongside with it. Specifically talking about the grades, the attitude you go about, not just by winning a game, but winning like a certain day of the week or winning the next day after the game. It's not about getting to the next game or reacting to the loss. It's just about continually progressing to be better and being the best version of yourself. So I think that's something that a lot of these Ole Miss players can really kind of buy into. And if they can get into that mindset and kind of believe that's going on, that they could really kind of elevate their game to the next level.
Yeah, he talked about he touched on playing defense. He said we're going to play defense, and that's for sure. And they're going to have a free structured offense is what they kind of called it. Free flowing but still structured. And he talked about the players. He wants them to show up to class. He wants them to be good men. He wants them. He expects a lot out of his players, and I think that's big for a head coach. A lot of these guys, especially with have star players coming in, they don't do much with these star players. They're pumping them out after a year into the NBA. But he wants to build relationships with these guys. You could tell he wants to get to know these guys personally.
Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, if you are an Ole Miss fan and you are just listening back to this or you watched it live and you hear this and you hear Chris Beard go up to that microphone, he says, "We're here to win championships. We're here to make Final Fours, and we're here to play on Monday night." A lot of coaches out there are going to say things like that. A lot. They all want to win championships. They all want to, get the accolades and have the success. But it feels just a little bit different. A little bit different, Cam, whenever you've been there, whenever you know what it takes to get there. And it just makes that buy-in that, just kind of listening to how it all went, you just believed it just a little bit more.
Yeah, he said we're not at Ole Miss to make the tournament. We're at Ole Miss to win the tournament. So he doesn't plan on just making it there the first year. He wants to win the whole thing. And he had 2 30-win seasons, 30-plus win seasons as a D1 head coach, and he had 2 other seasons where he got pretty close. And
one 30-win season at Little Rock, turning around a program that I believe won like maybe around 10 games the year prior.
Yeah. Upset a 5th seed Purdue in the tournament that year as well. So I
Mhm.
mean, he has experience with winning and just winning big. It's single digit season, single digit loss seasons are big time. Something we haven't seen here at Ole Miss very often, if at all. We've seen a lot of middle class seasons, I guess, and we haven't seen really that upper 20 season, and he's brought a couple of those.
A lot of middle class seasons. I love that. Oh, that's good. No, I think another thing that he talked about is he talked about the way Coach Lane Kiffin had built his program. He had talked about the way Coach Yo had built that program, and he pretty much said that it's going to be the same. You can expect it. That sort of meteor, whatever. Words are tough. That rise that you're going to see is the same thing that's going to happen with this basketball program. And he was clamoring for people. We talked a little bit about the relationships. He was absolutely telling people, go buy your season tickets now because
Yeah,
there's going to be a point when you can't. They're not going to be available. I think he
yeah,
made a couple of jokes about, should I give out the cell phone number to someone in the ticket office?
yeah. He was making sure the ticket office was open right now. He wanted to let fans know that you got to get on board now if you're going to get on board. It's like we have to figure out something. We got the lane train. We have to figure out something to jump on board with Chris.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about the tickets and stuff, and I think eventually we're going to see this the pavilion sell out, and we're going to see a lot of Ole Miss fans excited to see what coaches got in store for this program.
Yeah, just seeing the absolute, professional, the pros pro that he is. And I do have to bring up a certain part of this press conference that kind of happened, specifically after the part where they get to the introduction in front of the fans. He goes in, and Keith Carter starts out with a statement to the media, and then Chris Beard comes out, and I love this move by him. But he goes out and he talks about what happened in Texas. He talks about the incident, and he talks about the aftermath of it and how he became better out of it. But he does it before the questions are being asked about it, and he talks about how he wasn't allowed to talk about it then. And I think for him to go there, acknowledge what happened, acknowledge that he hasn't been able to talk about it since, to make his statement, and then to handle all the questions afterwards, it just showed a lot of honesty for him to understand that this was a very tough point in his life, that he has made the right steps to kind of become better out of it, to spend time with his family, to figure out what matters. I think he specifically talked about his spending time with his kids and kind of being able to cherish those moments. I thought that was a huge thing to hear from the new coach.
Yeah, every time he spoke about his kids or his family, his parents, he kind of got emotional. He got to seem like maybe in the past he hasn't had the time to spend with them. That he got to in these past couple of months. He got a lot of time off, got a lot of time to think, and he got a lot of time to spend with his kids. And I think like he said, he's becoming a different man. He likes the steps he's taking in this process, and like he said, he expects a new coach to be here at Ole Miss. He expects a new person when this second opportunity he got, and I think a lot of people are excited. A lot of bad press around all this, but with all that, the Ole Miss faithful is still done a really good job of welcoming him here. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just seeing that ability for him to talk to people like Kermit Davis, like AK, talking to Yo, being able to talk to people who've been around Oxford, who've been, associated with the university, kind of getting his expectations, what he needs to know, what he needs to do. It's just fantastic job of him getting acclimated. And I don't know, to me again, and I'm gonna say it again, day one was an A+, day two's A++. I think he went in there and said the exact right things and said them the exact right way.
Yeah, he handled everything very well. He knew exactly what he wanted to say, and like you say, he wasn't able to talk about some of the things, and he decided to keep a lot of those things private. But the things he did talk about, he gave us as much detail as possible, and he seemed very very confident in everything, and that's what we were hoping for. Is all this was settled when he got here, and it seems like all of it is. And Keith Carter. Great hires all over the board in the past, and I think this is another great one. And I think he's done a fantastic job here since he got here at Ole Miss. Not enough praise for Keith Carter for sure.
Yeah, no, Keith outlined his process, what they went through. He even kind of talked a little bit about some of the different groups of people that he about Chris Beard, and in all aspects of it, whether it was more on the legal side, actually talking to some former national championship level coaches about what their thoughts on who he was and the person that he is, and they decided this was a move they wanted to go with. And I think you kind of, saw a little bit of that, when Keith Carter sat down and had that first conversation or that first phone call with Chris Beard. You can kind of see what he kind of started to buy into and understanding it a little bit just by hearing him talk.
Yeah, and Keith talked about it too. As soon as he talked to Coach Beard, that when on I think he said he first contact was on February 28th, and he talked to him and said that this is the coach that we wanted right off the bat. And then
Mm-hmm.
as soon as he talked to him, as soon as he was done talking to him, this is the guy that he knew he wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, and I think this is something that is probably not going to get a lot of credit. When Ole Miss made the decision to move on from Kermit Davis, it gave them an opportunity to kind of go ahead and start doing their research, start getting able to speak to some candidates who aren't currently coaching. And for Chris Beard to be at top of that list, they were one of the teams that had the earliest access because some of these other jobs, these other high, profile jobs are just now becoming open.
Yeah.
And if I off the top of my head, St. John's is available right now. I think Georgia Tech may have just gotten filled with Damon Stoudemire. But those jobs are now kind of going through that process when Ole Miss is like, guess what? We've already done it. We're here. We've made, we know who we want and we got our hire. So very, very aggressive move by the Ole Miss athletic department, but they ended up with their guy. They went through the whole process. They saw it through. And now Ole Miss fans have something they can be excited about for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. I think Keith made the right decision on when he wanted all this to happen, and there was definitely a time frame laid out. It was definitely all planned, and even everyone thought the big jumbotron was for the women selection Sunday, but little did we know this was all scheduled for Chris Beard to be here today. This was all planned from Keith Carter, and this was a great day to beat Ole Miss Rebel. Is what he ended with as well.
Not only that, we did get a little bit of news regards to the basketball program besides the introductory press conference. We kind of finally get a little bit of a look of what Chris Beard's staff is going to be like, and with him hiring his first assistant, and it's going to be a guy that he's very familiar with in Brian Berg. Berg was the head coach at Georgia Southern. Most recently this year, they went 17-16, their best record in the conference in the Sun Belt, going 9-9. They finished 7th. But Georgia Southern decided they wanted to go a different direction, and very soon after, Chris Beard found an opportunity to reunite with one of his old assistants.
Yeah, I think the familiarity there, obviously something you look for. He talked about in his press conference about he doesn't look for coaches that are, just want a good recruiter or a good court coach. He wants head coaches surrounded by head coaches. That's what he wants on the floor. He wants guys that are going to be willing to do what he does as his job. Not just being an assistant. He wants guys that are going to be head coaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just kind of bringing out a little bit of a nugget here, something that I kind of that I stumbled across is I'm interested to see who he brings in. I'm also interested to see if he keeps anybody from the current staff. Those decisions will be made hopefully in the next week or so. But it is interesting that Win Case, interim head coach for the past few seasons, past few games, and for the SEC tournament. There is a somewhat of an interesting connection because Chris Beard and Bill Self are really good friends, and an assistant on Kansas's staff is Win Case's son.
Yeah, seems like the players, respond well to Win Case. He's a great guy. A lot of players seem like they, even in late in the season, seem like they rallied behind him almost. And we're gonna respect Chris Beard's decisions on who he wants on the staff. He's the head coach. But Win Case, if he decides to keep Win Case on the staff, I'm sure the Rebel fan base and the Rebel players will be happy about that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. I think that's about all we got for this episode. Cam, I appreciate you coming on, stepping up, being there for the Rebel Walk. You got to see everything live. Let everybody know where they can find your work at, Cam.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. You can find me at Cam_Wicker.
He also writes for therebelwalk.com, everybody. Yeah. Hashtag not an ad. Not a plug for the Rebel Walk. Cam Wicker. Thank you so much for joining us, man. As always, I'm TJ Oxley. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Anything you're looking for, Rebel Walk action, any sport, we got you covered. Have a good one, y'all.